Wallsend, NE28 8RJ. This morning's meeting, as I said, is being held virtually, so therefore it's being put out on YouTube. This is under the government regulations to do with the COVID. We now ask the committee and the other members to introduce themselves, starting with who wants to start? Councillor?
I'll start. I'm Janet Hunter, I'm Councillor Hunter. I'm a ward councillor for Benton Ward and a member of the licensing committee.
Councillor Dark?
Councillor Linda Dark, a member for Kenilworth Ward and a member of this committee today.
Licensing officer?
I'm Susan Vert and I'm a licensing officer for North Tyneside Council.
Mr Kirkpatrick?
Good morning, Chair. Members of the committee, my name is Neil Kirkpatrick, licensing officer for Northumbria Police.
Mr Parkin?
Good morning, Chair. My name's Dave Parkin. I'm the clerk for this meeting.
Mr Barton?
Morning, everyone. My name's John Barton. I'm a lawyer at the council and I'm a legal advisor to the subcommittee this morning.
Mr Ali?
Good morning. My name is Mr Mohammed Ali. I'm the applicant.
Right, thank you very much. My name is Councillor Tommy Mulvenna and I am the chair of the licensing subcommittee and will be chairing this morning's meeting. As I said before, this meeting is here to determine the licence this morning, and it's basically the licence is determined under 4 areas: the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. Each application comes before this committee will be treated on its own merits, and the licensing authority will take the decision based upon the merits of the application, the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, the statement of the licensing policy of North Tyneside Council, and the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. We now ask the licensing officer to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. The subcommittee are asked to consider and determine the application from Mohammed Ali for the grant of a premises licence in relation to 99 North Road, Wallsend, NE28 8RJ. The applicant has been invited to attend the meeting to put forward their case in support of the application. All persons making relevant representations have also been invited to attend. The application has been forwarded to the relevant authorities and the application has been advertised near the premises in a local newspaper and on the council website as prescribed. A representation has been made by the Chief Officer of Police and this is attached at Appendix 5. In relation to an application for the grant of a premises licence, the Licensing Committee can, under the Licensing Act 2003, grant a licence subject to conditions consistent with the operating schedule, exclude from the scope of the licence any of the licensable activities to which the application relates, refuse to specify a person in the licence as a premises supervisor, or reject the application. Once the subcommittee have reached a decision, the decision and reasons for the decision must be given in accordance with the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005. This report relates to an application for the grant of a premises licence in respect of 99 North Road, Wallsend. A copy of the application form is attached at Appendix 1. A plan at Appendix 2 and a map of the area at Appendix 3. The application for the grant of the premises licence is made pursuant of Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the relevant section of the Act dealing with the determination of such an application is contained in Section 18 of the Act. The application for a premises licence is as follows: to supply alcohol for consumption off the premises every day from 0800 until 2300. The general open times are every day from 0800 until 2300. If the licence is granted, this will be subject to mandatory conditions which are attached at Appendix 4 of the report. The applicant has included the following additional steps in the operating schedule which they intend to take in order to promote the licence and objectives. These are at Appendix 1. The parties to the hearing are the applicant, Mr. Muhammad Ali, and the responsible authorities, the police. The areas for consideration by the licensing subcommittee are the application for the grant of a premises licence in relation to 99 North Road, Wallsend. The subcommittee's attention is drawn to the relevant part of the policy, Section 10, Licence and Objectives, and also the relevant parts of the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, Chapter 2, Licensing Objectives. The subcommittee is asked to determine the application in whatever way it sees fit. Thank you.
Microphone, Chair.
Does any of the councillors have any questions to ask of the licensing officer?
No, thank you.
No.
Thank you. No. Police, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Ali?
No, thank you.
Mr. Barton, do you have any questions? Obviously not.
No, thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. You're very slow there with your microphone. Right. Seeing as there's no questions, we'll now move on to the police, who will put forward their objection. Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Chair. When we as a police force received the application, I was looking through the offered conditions that Mr. Ali had offered, and we as a police force didn't think they went far enough. I telephoned Mr. Ali and had a long conversation with the gentleman. Most of the offered conditions that he placed onto the premises license application were already in place, but he just bullet pointed them. I expressed to him that we needed to, as a police force, need to expand on those conditions. A set of proposed conditions we had a conversation about. And those proposed conditions are at page 38 and 39 of your agenda papers. Mr. Ali requested me to email them to him once they've been formulated into a set of words that both he and I were provisionally in agreement with. I did speak to Mr. Ali and explain to him the process of North Tyneside would adopt, and he was happy with that. He did email me back, he did text me back and say that he was happy with the proposed conditions, and those are the conditions I would like the committee to agree on today, or a similar wording if that's preferable, please, Chair.
Tommy, your microphone isn't on.
I know it keeps going on and off. Thank you, Mr. Kirkpatrick. Do either of the two councillors have any questions of Mr. Kirkpatrick? Councillor Hunter, do you have any questions on?
No, I haven't.
Do you have any questions, Councillor Dark?
No, thank you.
Licensing officer, do you have any questions?
No.
No. Mr. Ali, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
I have one question at the moment, and it's to do with the conditions that you've agreed, and that is the first one, the condition 1 about the CCTV. you've got down here that it is to be viewed by Northumbria Police. I would assume that it also includes the licensing authority, the Her Majesty's Excise and Customs, and so on and so forth in that.
Haven't I put that on number 1.6, Chair? That is to be viewed by the licensing authority.
We've got local authority, police officer, or a representative of Northumbria Police on request. But you haven't got trading standards and the other authorities that are involved in licensing.
Again, Chair, it was just proposed wording. Having spoken to Mr. Ali, I did express to Mr. Ali that there is a possibility that the licensing committee may change some of the wording of some of the conditions or change all of it, as is your discretion.
Chair, I think in section 6, it's about retaining for a minimum period and shall be supplied to the licensing authority or Northumbria Police. I think the question you were asking was about designing, installing and maintaining the CCTV in the first instance. So I think it's a slightly different answer that Mr. Kirkpatrick's given to the one question you were asking.
Well, we'll get a second bite in a minute. The other thing, as Councillor Hunter has said, around maintaining it and so on and so forth, again, it would be the authority and so on and so forth to actually, check it out, as it were. Again, you've got down there, it's the police who are dealing with it. I'm trying to, I wish I'd found the other glasses before this meeting started, but never mind. You've got, it should be a good standard, clarity, minimum 4 frames per second to be retained on a disc. The whole of question 1, section 1 of the conditions to do with the CCTV, and you talk about reasonable condition. What is reasonable condition? I mean, do they have to come and ask the police if they want to put another camera in, or what?
Again, Chair, to the reasonable satisfaction of and in consultation with Northumbria Police. When Mr. Ali and I had a conversation, he had a system already in there, hence why it's only suggesting 14 days.
Yes.
Because of the...
But surely that should also include the licensing authority and the Her Majesty's Inspector of Customs and Excise and so on and so forth, as well as the police. I mean, the way that's worded, it looks like the police are totally responsible for anyone getting access to the camera.
Again, Chair, it should be for the licensed authority to be in there as well, so I totally agree.
Right, thank you very much. And 14 days, is there any reason for 14 days? Because normally we look at 28 days.
Again, speaking to Mr. Ali, Chair, the system he had or he was going to install, it would stretch to the 28 days. However, the clarity wouldn't and the quality wouldn't be there. So we agreed that with his hard drive, we as a police force would prefer quality rather than quantity. So hence why the 14 days, Chair.
Right. Right, fair enough. Right, we'll let you off the hook now for the time being.
Thank you, Chair. I'm here when you need me.
But yes, it's actually nice to see you in a licensing committee with the camera on your machine, so that we're not just listening to you. It's best to see you in person.
I've got a new laptop, Chair.
Oh, did you get a grant out of the COVID? Sorry about that. Right, thank you very much. Has anyone got any other questions to ask of Mr. Kirkpatrick? No. Then can we go on to Mr. Ali and put forward your case as to what you want, as it were, or what you think you need? Mr. Ali?
Yes. Yeah, just as Mr. Kirkpatrick said, the officer from the police, I spoke to him over the phone. I've got the list of conditions which he proposed. I accept all of them. And again, I'm willing, if you need to go a little bit further in a bit more clarity or a bit more, as the wording, as you're talking about the wording, if you want a bit more extra wording, say the licensing authority, whoever needs to have access, I'm perfectly happy with you to add that.
Right. Anything else before people ask you questions? No?
No, I don't think so.
Right. Councillor Hunter, do you have any questions for Mr. Ali? Microphone. Do you have any questions, Councillor Hunter?
No, I haven't got any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Dark?
I've just got one really. It's a bit cheeky. We normally ask for 28 days to keep on camera. And, Mr. Kirkpatrick said that the quality wouldn't be good. Is there any way that you could have another camera? I mean, I don't know how much these things cost, but is there any chance that you could, you know, provide up to 28 days instead of the 14, because that's what we know for?
Yeah, if that's a requirement that obviously you require, then yeah, we can upgrade the system. Obviously, put the extra funds in to make sure that it records up to 28 days.
I mean, is that a prohibitive cost? I mean, I have no idea how much these things cost.
It'll be a little bit extra, but again, if it's what you require, then we've got no problem.
Right.
Got any questions of the licensing officer?
No, nothing from me.
I think very quiet today. Mr. Kirkpatrick?
No, thank you, Chair.
No questions. Right, Mr. Ali, you've already alluded that you could. Sorry, Mr. Barton.
Mr. Barton, just wonder if I could ask a question about the CCTV system at the premises.
But if you take my question away, I'll have you later.
No, I'll let you ask your questions first, and Chair. I thought you had asked the questions. You asked.
Ask your question. Go on.
Obviously, Councillor Doggs touched upon the 28 days retention period. I was just going to ask a little bit more detail about the CCTV system that's either there or is to be installed, in terms of whether or not there's any password protection for the footage, if the footage has a date and time automatically endorsed on the footage. If you could just explain a little bit more about the system that's in operation, please, Mr. Ali.
There's not a system in place yet. It's to be installed. So it was obviously as sort of laid out, sort of simple, sort of a description of what the system would be. But obviously, from the conditions proposed by the police and the stuff that has been added today, obviously it will be upgraded to include obviously the 28 days recording time. He's asking about a password from the systems that I've had before. There is usually a password on there, like a PIN number, that's required to either to view the footage or to record the footage. So I don't know. Are you asking, should there be one or should there not be one?
Obviously, if you don't have a system, it's just sometimes. I mean, there's no such thing as a standard condition, but quite often the subcommittee attached conditions which says that the footage has to be retained in a protected fashion. So obviously people can't tamper with any recorded footage, etc. And quite often the date and time is obviously helpful on footage when you're viewing it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Mr. Kirkpatrick got any views in terms of whether or not that's something that ideally he would want on the system as well. It's not included in the conditions, I appreciate. It's just best to get these things out in the open, as it were, now.
To answer that again, I would say if you add them in the conditions, if you want it to be password protected, I can obviously before I get the system installed, I can make sure that the person who installs it, the engineers, they make sure that they do adhere to those conditions. So they include the specifications that you've asked for.
Okay, thank you. And can I just ask as well about the proposed designated premises supervisor?
Yeah.
You're not to be the DPS should a license be granted. Can you just explain if that person's related to you and how often they'll be on the premises, please?
Yeah, the person who the DPS I've put down it's my father. So he lives with me at the moment as well. So he will be quite heavily involved. The only reason that I've put him down as the DPS instead of myself is because I haven't got my personal license yet, which I hopefully will be getting in the next sort of year or so when I get some time to apply for it.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ali.
You're welcome.
Do you have any comments on that, Mr. Kirkpatrick, and what Mr. Barton's asked or said?
I seem to have lost everybody. No, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. So, Mr. Ali, this CCTV stuff, it'll be date stamped and time on it and that sort of thing as well, will it?
Yeah, the system usually has its own sort of time, and whenever it's displayed or when it's recorded, it will have a date and timestamp on it.
And everyone who works in the shop will be able to hand it over to any of the authorities that come and request it.
I would probably say no.
Right.
If I have just staff working there, I don't think they would be they would have access to it, which I think the gentleman before was pointing out that obviously it needs to be secure, so that no one can tamper with it or delete it or do anything untowards. So it would probably just be me. So I'll have the authority and the responsibility to provide it to whoever wants it.
So if it's required by any of the reciprocal authorities,
yeah,
how would they go about actually getting to find out, or when, where, and how long would it take for them to get it? Because my understanding is that if someone comes in and asks for it, it needs to be handed over pretty quickly.
Well,
so,
again, I live locally in Fenham, so if I'm not at the business, I would be at home, or I would be locally. So if required, I would be able to get it the same day.
So the individual in the shop would have access to you immediately?
Yes, they would.
And then you'd be able to give whoever it was who was asking an answer as to when you would be there to hand it over?
Yeah, I could do it straight away, pretty much the same day.
Right, thanks. Sorry.
Yeah, may I just ask you to jump in there? Just a quick question, please.
Yes.
Mr. Ali, at the present moment, obviously, we're not really going quite far from our homes with the current COVID situation. But I do presume in the not too distant future, you may wish to go on holiday at some time?
Yeah.
Possibly out of the country? Will there be somebody that would be the person you would go to, or we as a police force or licensing authority could go to then get that CCTV?
Yeah, of course. Hopefully in the near future, when holidays and stuff open up again, if I was away from the business, there would be some sort of a manager or someone or a supervisor in my place who would be able to do whatever I could do.
Right. Okay.
So there would be someone trained to obviously use the CCTV, to record the CCTV, and to obviously show it to any authorities who ask for it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mr. Barton, I saw your hand there.
Yes, Chair. I mean, I think Mr. Ali's just touched upon it there, but obviously one of the conditions that would appear to have been agreed between the parties was the need for a member of staff to be trained in the operation of the CCTV system, and obviously to provide the footage if a responsible authority goes into the premises to ask for the footage. I mean, I presume that's what the police were getting at when they put forward that condition, and that's, as I say, that's what I understand has been agreed to. So I presume I'm asking Mr. Ali, I suppose, are you saying that there will be a member of staff who will be trained and able to provide the CCTV CCTV footage if a responsible authority like somebody like Mr. Kirkpatrick goes in to ask for the footage?
What probably answer to that was thinking from myself. It's my plans are probably just for a small business, so I don't think there would be that many number of staff working there, other than me. If there would be some part-time staff, but it would mainly just be me. And obviously, in the case of like if I'm going away or anything, someone else would be trained.
It's just I'm looking at page 38 of the papers.
Yeah.
Condition number 3.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you're at the premises just about all of the time, then that might not be an issue.
Yeah.
But what I understand is you're agreeing, and what the subcommittee are being invited to do is to attach to any license that's granted a condition that somebody will be trained and is able to provide CCTV footage.
Yeah.
Obviously, pretty short notice, I would assume, to any of the responsible authorities. Yeah. And I assume that's why Northumbria Police have put that forward. Do you understand that condition, and are you able to abide by it if it becomes a condition on the licence?
I do, yes, I understand. I'm looking at the condition that you're talking about. Again, what I said was that it would be me solely responsible for it, but I'm sort of just forgot about that condition there. But yeah, I suppose any staff that I do have, I could train them in the operation of the CCTV.
Thank you very much.
Right. When we get on to staff training, right, and I know you've just said that there'll be, very few staff, as it were, but how are you going to go about actually training them in the not just the conditions of the license, but the actual licensing act, things like the 25 rule and so on and so forth? Are you going to train them yourself, or are you going to get someone else to train them, or are you going to send them for training?
No, I think it'll just be myself who trains them.
Right. And bearing in mind that you haven't got a personal license yet, do you think you would be adequately equipped to train these people?
To answer that question, I would probably just change my answer to my last question. Was I would get my father, who is the DPS for the premises license, to assist in training any staff.
Right. And when we go on to record keeping for staff, that would be on the premises, would it? It
would be kept on the premises.
So on and so forth. So there would be training records on the premises. Would that be right there?
As per the conditions, the records will be retained on the premises for any for the police or any other licensing authority or trading standards to have a look at whenever they wanted.
Would they be paper records, or would they be on a computer?
I would say paper records.
Right. When it comes down to refusals, would you have a refusals register?
Yeah.
And would you be recording why the individuals were refused service at the counter for alcohol? What type of refusals would you be having?
Sorry. Yeah, the refusals register. The ones that I have worked in shops before. The ones that sort of we used before is sort of a standard sort of thing where you have what's happened, like a little description of what's happened. Say, what if you've refused someone, you've got a reason for why you've refused someone. You have a little description of who they were, and you've got a date and a time. So if there was any sort of problem, you could go back to the CCTV and match it up with that refusal.
Mm-hmm. And would there be any refusals for other than underage drinking?
Yeah, because plan to sell cigarettes as well. So there would be for under 18 for cigarettes as well. Other than that, solvents, gas solvents, lighters and stuff, again, they would they would be subject to ID. Other than that, I don't think we would be selling anything else that is age restricted.
What if I was to come in drunk? Would you be serving me?
No, I don't think so. Again, going by the Licensing Act and the conditions, I'd probably refuse service.
Right, thank you very much. Now, when it comes to your CCTV system, how many cameras would you actually have in the shop or around the shop, and what would they be covering?
If I just go through it by list, I would probably have one outside the front of the shop, covering the entrance into the shop and out of the shop. There would be one around the back of the shop towards the rear entrance, and then within the shop there would be possibly two covering the till area. There would be one covering the entrance inside, and there would probably be 2 or 3 covering the section of the off license of where the alcohol would be kept in the shop.
Right. Does anybody else have any questions that they've thought of for Mr. Ali? Yes, no, no.
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for that. You don't have any more questions, Mr. Barton, do you?
No, it's not really a question, it's just an observation. Again, you asked the question about who would be delivering the training, and I think Mr. Ali said initially it would be himself, then perhaps his father would assist. But condition number 5, which deals with the training, indicates that it should be delivered by a personal license holder. So I'm just flagging that up for Mr. Ali, that it would have to be somebody such as his father, who was obviously the holder of a personal license holder. Maybe yourself if you get your license in due course. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, if there's no further questions of Mr. Ali, then can we move on to summing up? Can I move to the licensing officer? Do you have anything to sum up on?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Kirkpatrick?
No, thank you, Chair. I think I've said everything that needs to be said. Thank you.
Do any of the 2 councillors have any comments that they... No?
No, thank you.
Mr. Ali, would you like to sum up your application or your case this morning?
Yeah, just to say, obviously, the questions that everyone's asked of me today, I'll take on the comments that I've had from Mr. Barton as well, to say, obviously, yeah, I need to have a little read through again the conditions, and obviously make sure, like, just for example, the training, that until I get my personal license, to make sure that my father does carry that out, and again, until I get my personal license. Other than that, yeah, I'm open to any conditions that are set, any sort of specification that you require for the CCTV. I'm happy to make sure that that is up to standard to what you require. And other than that, yeah, that's it, I think.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Ali. I hope that you understand why we've had a hearing this morning. As it was mentioned at the start, that we may not have had a hearing because the agreement between yourself and the police, but the necessity for the licensing authority, and I emphasise the licensing authority because North Tyneside is the licensing authority, and whatever conditions we put on a licence, we expect to be fulfilled by any applicant, and our officers do actually go and look at premises and enforce premises licenses on a regular basis, and basically, you know, we wouldn't want you to be getting a license and then coming back in 6 weeks' time and saying that you haven't understood everything that we've actually said. So could I just ask, are you sure you actually understand where we've actually went this morning and some of the changes that we've actually suggested?
I do understand, yes.
Right, thank you very much for that. And in that case, if no one else has got anything to say, I will bring this meeting to a close. The meeting closes, and the two other councillors, myself, Mr. Barton, and Mr. Parkin, will sit down. The three councillors make the decision, but we have the legal advice from Mr. Barton, and we have the terms and conditions all wrote down by Mr. Parkin. He keeps us right as far as the terminology is concerned. Mr. Barton keeps us right as far as the legality is concerned. So that's what's going to happen now, and hopefully we'll make a decision today. And I'm not too sure whether you will actually get to know today. I'll just check Mr. Parkin on this. Mr. Parkin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've spoken to Mr. Ali and Mr. Kirkpatrick and said that once you've made your decision, I will email them with a simple yes or no, they've been successful or not, and they will get the full reasons and the decision within 5 working days, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. So that's the situation. I'll now bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.